I was walking around the house, typical cold winter day in Ohio, where I'm from. And these were the days where you would go on AOL Instant Messenger for hours. So this dates me a little bit. But on this particular day, my little brother was on the computer and he was messaging a guy from the high school wrestling team. And I happened to walk by when the wrestler sent my brother a message, how's your sister doing? And I thought to myself, well, gosh, that's weird because I knew this guy, but I did not know him that well. And so I did what any big sister would do, and I kicked him off. And I went on the computer to investigate. Well, it turns out this guy was asking me how I was doing because my boyfriend at the time, who was also on the wrestling team, had broken up with me that week. I didn't know this. And so there I was, and I remembered we'd had a conversation the week before, and we did not connect well because he walked away thinking he had dumped me, and I walked away thinking he had not. And so there I was. And the thing is, I can laugh at this pretty hard now. I mean, it's funny, come on. And so, but at the time, this was absolutely devastating. And the thing was, it was my first big heartbreak in a relationship. And it turns out heartbreak hurts. And I even remember thinking to myself around this time, I never want to feel this kind of pain ever again. And in fact, I became masterful for the next 10 to 15 years of bypassing my own pain and heartbreak. However, while doing that, I also bypassed deeper love, more meaningful connections, and in many ways, a relationship with myself. When I say love or heartbreak, I don't have to explain it. Any one of you in here who have the capacity to feel emotion and connect to another human being know what I'm talking about, because love and heartbreak are inherent in what it means to be human. So with that, I like to talk about feelings. And in fact, I made an entire career out of trying to help people feel better through their feelings. When people ask me, Erika, what have you done for the majority of your career? And I usually give one of two answers. The short answer is nursing. And then the longer, more encompassing answer is that I've had a front row seat to human heartbreak. I have watched people die alone with no one at their side. I have seen parents take their children off life support. I've seen people lose their minds and therefore their jobs. And I've seen people lose their entire families in real time due to gripping substance abuse. Heartbreak has been at the core of everything I've done in my career. However, you have to remember that heartbreak cannot exist without being open to love something deeply in the first place. So therefore, I also witnessed a tremendous amount of love. Now, to get into the medical field, I had to read thousands of pages of textbooks to become competent on healing. And, there's all kinds of healing and healing modalities. But when it comes to healing the heart and the soul, which is a very overlooked part of healing, the thing I learned from the most were the stories told to me by my patients throughout my medical career. And it was through thousands of stories that fundamentally shifted how I saw healing and forever changed how I showed up as a healer, business consultant, a partner in a relationship, and also just a human girl living her everyday life. Now, the area of medicine that I worked in most often was in psychiatry, actually, on psych wards. I see your faces. And the thing is, I actually really loved working on psych wards because more than any other area of medicine, psychiatry provided me the opportunity to get to know people. And that is really important to me as a very relational, very chatty human being. And so you think working on psych wards all the time that I'm hearing the story all the time of what's going on in people's minds and the psychology of it all. And the thing is that was part of it. But more than anything else, when I got really present and listened and let people really tell their story, what they were telling me, the story of behind all the chaos is the story of what was going on in their heart. When people tell you the story of their hearts, love and connection will be at the center of them, and then also the absence of them. My dad threw me out on the streets when I was 14. I'm so depressed and I'm really not sure if I do matter. My stepmom said I wasn't hers to take care of. I'm not really sure I have a purpose. I don't really know if I'm supposed to be here. These are just one sentence of entire stories of pain that I would hear day in and day out working on psych wards. Whether it's personally, professionally, or in our relationships, love and connection, I have found, are inherently necessary. You cannot remove love and connection from any aspect of our lives because in every aspect of every day, we are human. But here's the problem, y'all, we have tried. And the thing is, it's not working. All it's doing is making us more ill, addicted, disconnected, and dysfunctional. Love and connection were never talked about in my Ivy League medical training or in my rounds at the hospitals. But what I can tell you from over a decade of helping people heal is that the experiences around the human heart are core keys in healing in mind, body, and spirit. So I'm here today to talk to you about the power of love and connection and how we can start taking small steps to living more heart-centered lives to turn this into a more heart-centered world. Can you get down with that? All right. Okay, so some of you might be thinking, Erika, this sounds like a hippy-dippy, like head in the clouds idea, love, yay. And I promise you, it is not. And in fact, there is a ton of research coming out and already has come out around how impactful the experiences around our heart are and how they really impact our lives and our bodies. And so here's a couple things. I want you to know that the heart sends more signals to the brain, actually, than the brain does to the heart. The heart is highly intelligent, and it has its own intelligence, and the data it sends to the brain is vital in how we behave through influencing our emotional development and higher cognitive functions. Studies have found that people who lack social connections have more of a detriment to their health than people who have obesity, smoking, or high blood pressure. And all I heard about my medical training was smoking, obesity, and high blood pressure. And yet there's this thing called human connection. And it's more, if we don't have it, it's more of a detriment. It matters. Harvard found that over a lifetime, the greatest predictor to lifelong happiness was how meaningful our relationships are. And then people experience more self-love and love with others, experience less depression and anxiety. No brainer. So mind, body, and spirit. So this is what it's telling us. The heart is more than just this organ that pumps blood throughout our entire body. It is this mystery as well. It's this energetic center within us that houses the most vulnerable parts of ourselves. That's why when it gets broken, we feel broken. And that's why we work so hard to protect it. And I think we've overshot the mark. So this is the place where we house the greatest truth of who we are. And the thing is, we need to be able to share that truth. There's a truth I want to share right now, or I believe it's true, is that I believe people are inherently good. And I've seen a lot of good people do really bad things. This is coming from a woman who has worked with ex-convicts and dated some questionable ex-boyfriends. So I have personal and professional experience. And even no matter who we are or what we have or haven't done, I believe we're good. So we need to be able to share that truth with each other. If you can't already tell, I believe connection is medicine. And it's not just medicine, it is an inherent need. Here's the problem. I think we're trying to cure dehydration without water by trying to help people heal without addressing this deficit of love and connection in people's lives. Yeah. And so some of you might be thinking, well, Erika, we're more connected than ever. There's social media. I'm on my dating apps. I got, dates for weeks. And, we can just get on a plane and see people and all this other stuff. And I'm here to say, really? Because here's the thing, not all connections can create it equal. And we're always checking the connection of our Wi-Fi and our technology and how well is it connecting? And when it comes to how humans are connecting right now, I'm gonna go with not well. I think we're on one bar. We're connecting, but it's not great. I mean, look at the world around us right now, guys. Look at the violence. We're in an opiate epidemic, which translates to me emotional pain epidemic. That's what it is. Mental health issues are on the rise in spite of having more medication and more treatments than ever. Why? It's because we're having a connection issue. And so to figure out, I'm a person who figures it out. And so I had to go back to What's the disconnect? And that's where I went back to my thousands of stories of pain that people told me over the last decade plus. And I found, even in my own stories of pain, I've experienced a lot of pain and heartbreak in my day. And I looked at my stories and then the stories of others, and what I came to find is there's a common thread. And that common thread is this, that I truly believe our greatest suffering as human beings is we are lacking in the lived experience of love and care. Love is turned into knowledge. It is turned into a cerebral, intellectual knowing versus a lived experience. It's one thing to know you're loved and cared about. It's another thing to feel that you're loved and cared about. It's another thing to experience that you're loved and cared about. How many of you in here have been treated like garbage by someone who actually loves you and you know it? It's not that we don't love each other as human beings. There is more love in this world than we can fathom. But we have walled off and cut off the supply from our own hurt. And so what I've come to find is that if we don't address this walled off, shut off, tuned off that we have turned ourselves into, we're not going to make progress. So I had to go back to, well, what was working on when I worked on psych wards, which was one of my greatest teachers, how were people having the lived experience of love and care? Because when I first started as a nurse, there was Mary. She was a behavioral health tech in her 50s. And when she showed up, people calmed down. And it's not because she was tough. She was like probably 5 foot. But when she showed up, she did a whole lot of nothing. And she said very little. But less medication was used when Mary was around. People would say thank you when she was done talking to them. And then other people showed up. And then they would say the same things Mary was saying. But that turned them up. I'm like, screw you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, ooh, that didn't work. So what was Mary doing that other people, they're saying the same things, but what was Mary doing? Here's the thing, and it took me years to figure this out, but the thing Mary did differently, and so did many of my mentors in my career, is this. It's simple. They showed up with an open heart. When you show up with an open heart, it's warm, it's inviting, it's kind, it's safe. And we can't fake our way into that, is the thing. So how do we create more lived experiences of love and care? How can we open up our hearts more in a way that's authentic, real? So I had to go from the stories of pain to the stories of joy, the stories of love, the stories of like, oh gosh, this feels so good, right? Because I heard a lot of those too. And I found over the years that there were these patterns of behavior that showed up when people were having the lived experience of love and care, where the energy that's in this mysterious place was able to come out and able to be received. And I found some common things. So I want to introduce you what I call the heart compass. And what I'm hoping with this is to just give you some insight and some really simple ways to recognize that we can choose to show up and get back to our hearts, navigate the way back to our hearts every day. And every opportunity when we meet with a human being is an opportunity to connect, is an opportunity to navigate our way back to the heart. Just one decision, one human being, one moment at a time. And so what I noticed is when people have the lived experience of love and care, where they're like, man, I really did feel loved and cared about. A number of things can show up, but these were the things that showed up most to me. And they were curiosity, consideration, compassion, and celebration. So I'm going to take you through that compass right now and get you a little familiar with it. Curiosity is the desire to learn. When we can get curious about our heart's experiences, our emotions, our feelings, our desires, our pains, we get to know our hearts. It's one thing to know what you like for dinner. I like tacos. That's great. But who are you? What really makes you tick? What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel on fire? Because if we start asking ourselves these questions, we're going to get a whole lot of people in this world who are living from the heart and living their lives on fire. And so it's through thoughtful questions like, how do you feel? What do you need? Because we have needs other than food, clothing, and shelter. We have needs to be seen, heard, understood, loved, connected, right? And so, what do you need right now? I need you to just listen to me. Great. And then, what was your experience of that? That's the hardest question when it involves us and it involves pain. But if we can start getting curious, we can really open things up. Next is consideration. Consideration is careful thought about ourselves and also the people we love and care about. Consideration is great because it can start to put the heart front of mind. And so, how is what I'm going to do or not do going to impact those I care about and their hearts? How is that going to impact my heart and my well-being? We got to start just taking a moment to pause and consider. How are we going to impact each other? Because the thing is, we need each other. And so we need to consider how we're showing up in the world. It actually matters. Next is compassion. Compassion is one of my favorite because I believe compassion is the biggest antidote to pain. Compassion is the regard for the misfortune and suffering of others and our own. And so if we get really present, we can be with the pain and stuff and the pain of the heart and suffering. The thing is, the heart's not always a badass and being like, it's love and light all the time in kittens. And it's not. Sometimes it really sucks to have your heart open and it hurts because we have loss of love and loss of things that matter to us. But in compassion, that's when the pain starts to wash away. And so we can have compassion for ourselves and others. And then lastly is celebration. We need to celebrate who we really are. This is not about celebrating what we approve of in other people, what we approve of. This is about honoring what lights the other person on fire. What makes you feel alive? I'm going to honor that in you. There was one woman one time I worked somewhere and she had a mullet. And I was like, I thought to myself, man, I want to be caught dead in that. But gosh, I celebrate you. You rock that, sister. She did amazing. I mean, that's what made her feel shiny. How can I not celebrate that? Right? We need to celebrate so we stop hiding. Celebration leads to us not hiding. So here's the thing. What if we implemented our own heart compasses? You make up your own. But what if we start navigating way back to our hearts? What would this world look like? What would businesses, schools, families look like if we start taking things from a heart-centered place? We're not living from the hearts right now, y'all. We're living from our minds. And we can shift the paradigm now. That isn't my invitation. So I'm going to end with this. Love cannot be known. It needs to be experienced. And I invite you to join me all on that journey today. Thank you so much.